So we have a 13 by 3.5 inch bowl here. I'm going to show you how I go about hollowing it. There's obviously more than one approach out there, but I'll show you how I do it. First thing you want to do is make sure you give it a spin so it turns. That's going to turn the lathe on and turn the RPMs up. Make sure it's not shaking. RPMs, high RPMs are both your friend and your enemy. They're your friend because it makes the job easier. They're your enemy because if something goes wrong and you have high RPMs, that's when things get dangerous. So don't get carried away, and if you're new, low RPMs. A professional turner by the name of Stuart Batty, I believe, and then I'm going completely by memory, says about 800 RPMs, the bowl is going to drop to the floor versus going airborne. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of chew this up a little bit. This is a shearing cut, so I am riding right there on the bevel. So right there is where my gouge is cutting. Handle's dropped a little bit. So the flute is probably facing the 11 o'clock position. So this would be the 12, that would be the 9. It's about at the 11, maybe a little more higher than the 11. And that largely depends on your your speed. So this is a Irish grind. It's 55 degrees off the nose. I don't know what it is on the wings, but 55 off the nose. And I'm just gonna pull it across the wood. Handle slightly dropped. Now what I'm going to do is give myself some room to work, so I'm just going to turn in from the handle being on the right side of the head of the lathe and mostly level. Gouge turn to about the I'd say about the 2 o'clock position. So that's a spiral catch there. If you close the gouge a little bit more when you start the cut, maybe even plant your thumb behind the gouge, you're less likely to have that happen. Not really a dangerous thing, but it can mess up your project when you're finishing things up. So what I just did there can be done for the entire hollowing, but I find it to be more work. So now I hollow from this side. And I am cutting, so the gouge is cutting right there. So it is a shear cut. Don't hang too far off the lathe to do this. I drop my handle a little bit. The gouge is rolled to about the, I'm gonna say about the 10 o'clock position, maybe the 10:30, somewhere in there. Again, that depends on the grind because this is a shear cut. That means the fibers are coming right down on the sharpened edge. And then once I get to the bottom, I leave a ledge, and basically I'm not going to pick up any more of the cut. I'm not going to make it bigger, so I stop before my wing touches this part of the bowl, and I continue that as I go. You can do an overhand cut or you can do an underhand. You can also come around to the other side so that you're not catching all those scabies. So right now, my right hand is on the gouge. So you can do either way. It can be more of a pulling action, or you can do more of a pushing action where you're standing even more out of the way. Downside to this is you can't see as well. But when you're first starting out, it keeps you from catching all those chips. And if you start feeling it prying against your hand, your left hand, the hand that's holding the handle, stop because you're going to get a leverage catch. A leverage catch is when you take a larger bite than you can handle, strength-wise. And obviously, the further over the tool rest you are, the more leverage the lathe has on you. If you're new, do not take this large of a cut. Take a small cut. I have a very large tenon. The outside of my jaws are around 6 1/4. So if you got a tiny little chuck, you cannot take these big cuts or tiny little jaws. It'll rip it right out of there.
This last little bit can be tricky, as if any of your gouge is to the right of center, it can be hard to control.
Again, make some room for those push cuts.
So the rim thickness should be about 10% of the diameter. It can be a little less.
I'm going to switch to a 40/40 grind. It just cuts a little cleaner. That's a spiral catch.
Just checking to make sure that my gouge is cutting at center, less prone to getting a spiral catch if that's the case.
So 40/40 grind, and basically you can enter the cut with the gouge a little more closed, and as you get started you open it up a little bit so it'll cut a little more aggressive. It's turned probably about to the 2 o'clock position roughly. I have my handle dropped a little bit, mostly level. Again, we're just more of those peeling cuts where the fibers are coming basically directly down on the cutting edge. So right down like that. The advantage to this is the tool is pretty much always right down by your side. Much easier to fight a little bit of leverage. Less wear and tear on your shoulder. Just kind of come across the bottom. I don't know that I got my wall thickness perfect just yet. So I got to deepen it by about 3/8 of an inch to that point right there. Again, 40-40 grind there. This is just a scraping action, so the flute is facing the bottom of the bowl. Sometimes you just use the tool that's in your hand. I'm now using a traditional grind. That cuts the nicest across the bottom of the bowl.
This is a grind where you put it on the platform of your grinder and just roll the gouge. The wings are not swept back at all.
It's okay to be a little thinner on the bottom than you are up here. You're going to lose moisture faster here. So I do taper it a little bit as I go. Right now I'm only tapered just slightly. Traditional grind. This gouge will cut, I can pretty much cut any way, you know, that flute can be just about any kind of direction. It's very nice in that way. For this point, I just like to use the flute kind of in the 2 o'clock position, call it. Sometimes the flute being in a different position will change how cleanly it cuts. So it's something you can just play with. But this is a roughing cut. It doesn't have to be perfect, just pretty good, you know. Little torn fiber rod right down there, but nothing for a roughed out bowl to be concerned about. Just gonna knock the sharp edge off there. We're done.
Cracks are more likely to start off of the point, so removing that will help it dry with less likelihood of cracking.
Knocking the sharp edge off, push cut, scrape cut, anything you like to just remove that. So scraping is when your flute is facing the wood. I don't scrape on the inside for the most part, especially at this point. Mostly when I want to make a nice clean cut along, especially these fibers here, I want to be doing a push cut. For the bulk of the removal, that peeling cut that I use is the most effective. Once I get down to the bottom, a lot of times, whatever tool I have in my hand, I'm going to make it work, and then I'm going to finish it off with that traditional grind. So, bulk of the removal, the Irish grind. It's 55 degrees off the nose. Clean cutting down along this portion of the bowl, you know, to make that last pass. 40-40 grind. And as a roughed out bowl, you can get away with all kinds of murder here, but I tend to use these same cuts because I like it being cut clean. You can, if you have softwood, you can really tear the fibers. And this is a traditional grind used just to finish off the bottom, and you can actually make a cut all the way from the rim all the way to the foot with this gouge. It can be a little tricky to start a cut, so that would be the only area there, but that also can be done. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Please like and subscribe, and I'd love to hear any comments that you have, unless it's just tearing me down, in which case I don't want to hear it. Have a good one. Hope to catch you on the next one.